Emperor's edict. Let him be called So when the imperial herald cried out these words, it meant only one thing for Peconius Agrippinus. But what did this poor guy do to deserve such a cruel fate? Let's find out in today's episode of Emperor's Edict. Welcome to my channel. The year 67 AD, you are watching this report from Rome. As we begin our tale today, our hero he is a successful Roman senator who has held several important government positions during the reign of the current emperor, Tiberius. And he's just finished writing a very well-received philosophical treatise on how to deal with grief. It's actually one of the top sellers at the bookshop where he bought it. He's also enjoying life outside of public office because he doesn't want to go back. Sure, there's plenty more where that came from, but he knows the famous Stoic saying, a person's life is 10 years with the best part being the first. In other words, he wants to enjoy his old age while he can, especially since he's already been through quite a lot. When he was just 18, his mother, Julia Misa, died. Then 3 years later, his beloved father, Gaius, died after falling victim to an assassination plot instigated by the evil Cassius was the uncle of the future emperor, Caligula, and a potential threat to the Julio-Claudian dynasty. So the ambitious Sejanus thought he would get rid of him. He told Tiberius that Cassius had insulted him and convinced the emperor to have him put to death. Agrippinus was only 21 when his father was killed, and he inherited his seat in the Senate. He must have seemed like a promising young man. After all, he was a member of the influential Cassius family. He had written a very well-received philosophical treatise, and he was extremely wealthy, thanks to his father leaving him an inheritance. If you were in ancient Rome, you could easily mistake him for being a future emperor. And sure enough, at 25, he was invited by the emperor to dedicate a book to him. By all accounts, this was a great honor. It meant that Tiberius had taken notice of the young man and wanted to show him favor. So Agrippinus dedicated his book on grief to the emperor, which he must have been happy to accept, since he too had recently lost his wife. But instead of showing gratitude to the young man who had given him a nice distraction from his grief, Tiberius got angry and had him thrown into prison. The reason he suspected Agrippinus of having written that book is a veiled attack against him, accusing him of killing his own grandmother, Julia Misa, so that Agrippinus would inherit her wealth. Yeah, that sounds ridiculous. But don't forget, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Tiberius's paranoia. So Agrippinus stayed in jail for 2 years until the emperor died and was succeeded by his adopted son, Gaius Caesar, who was much nicer than his adoptive father. Finally released from prison, Agrippinus wrote another successful book, this one about friendship, and returned to public life. We even hear about him in a letter written by the future emperor Trajan to his friend Plinius. Trajan mentions that he ran into Athens and says that he was very glad to see him and to verify that he was still alive, since he had heard some rumors that Agrippinus had been executed by order of Tiberius. So that gives us a glimpse into the kind of reputation Agrippinus had. People wondered if he was dead or alive. There's even a rumor reported by the historian Tacitus that after Tiberius died, Agrippinus' name was found on a list of people the deceased emperor wanted to have killed. Luckily, Gaius never found that list, or he didn't care about it because he seems to have treated Agrippinus quite well. The two men are even said to have been on vacation together in Greece, where they visited the Oracle of Delphi. And apparently Agrippinus impressed the young emperor so much that he made him a member of the prestigious Arval Brethren, a secret religious cult of priests that advised the Roman emperor on matters relating to fertility and the health of the state. The trouble started when the imperial power fell into the hands of the infamous the grandmother of Nero. She took control of the government and appointed her favorite, the infamous Seneca the Younger, as advisor to the young emperor. So now you have a power-hungry woman and a corrupt, debauched philosopher controlling the most powerful man in the world. Needless to say, that didn't turn out well. It gets worse when you realize that the third member of this unholy trio was a former gladiator and military officer whom Agrippinus had helped secure his position as an influential freedman and close friend of the emperor. He also had a seat in the Senate. In short, Agrippinus wasn't exactly a nobody, but when he defended the widow of a client of his in a case involving an unfair trial, Boris accused him of acting contrary to the wishes of the emperor. It looks like Boris twisted Agrippinus' words and convinced the empress and Seneca that he was plotting against them. Maybe he felt threatened by the influence Agrippinus had over the young emperor, or maybe he just liked to stir up trouble. The point is that soon after, when the emperor left for a vacation to Greece, Agrippinus was arrested and accused of treason. This is according to the account of the historians, and he also tells us that Agrippinus' father-in-law, Vibus Crispo, tried to defend him in court but was ignored. Then when Agrippinus was summoned to appear before the court, he walked in wearing shackles, looked up to the emperor and said, "Is this how you honor the man who saved your life?" He then unleashed a powerful defense, but it didn't work. Agrippinus was convicted and exiled to an island off the coast of Italy. You may be wondering why I kept referring to him as Gaius Caesar, since the emperor we're talking about here was clearly Nero. Well, it's because the story of Agrippinus isn't entirely clear and there are different versions of it. In fact, another version of the story says that Agrippinus was accused by Boris when Nero went to Greece and was sent to the mines of a place called, wait for it, Panion. See, that's where he got his nickname. But let's not worry about the details. The important thing is that he was sent away. Suffering, exile, poverty, and ill health. His only hope was that he would survive long enough to see Nero die so that he could finally return to Rome and clear his name. But unfortunately, he died a few years later, never seeing the fulfillment of his wish. If Suetonius' account is correct, he lived a total of 54 years. If the other version is correct, he lived to be 65. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that he died without being able to clear his name. Tacitus writes that those who had been marked by Tiberius for execution often ended up being persecuted under the next emperors as well, either because their successor continued the policy of the previous one, or because they needed someone to blame for crimes that had nothing to do with the previous regime. Agrippinus knew this, and that's why he asked for a fair trial, believing that once Nero took power, he would be able to tell the young emperor the truth and set things straight. But unfortunately, he never got that chance. Yet we know that he was innocent because Suetonius tells us so. Maybe he didn't have much political sense, but Agrippinus was no fool. He knew perfectly well that if he was going to be exiled, he had better take precautions, and he certainly wasn't going to leave Rome without his fortune. Suetonius says that though Agrippinus was accused of plotting against the emperor, he didn't try to flee or hide, and he certainly would have been able to escape Rome without taking ship from the port of Ostia, yet he was known to always carry a small bag with him and never sailed without it. Even when he traveled across the Bay of Naples, he also left instructions in that same bag for his freedmen and slaves, freeing them from their bonds and giving them their inheritance. In short, Agrippinus wasn't a rebel nor a traitor. He simply had bad luck. But maybe the Stoics believed that we should accept our fate, so it was probably all part of his karmic destiny. But remember, it's not the years in your life that make it worthwhile. It's the life in your years. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel and follow me on social media.